Hey, good morning, Renew Church. Welcome to the Sunday morning Renew Church live stream service. This is actually the pre-service, and my name is Andrew. I'm one of the pastors here at Renew Church, and today we had the pleasure to be joined by a close friend of Renew Church, Lina Kohli. What up, girl?
Hey, how are you?
Are you excited to be here today?
I'm excited and maybe a little nervous.
How nervous? Scale of 1 to 10.
7.
You got almost tears in your eyes right now. Everything's good. And then we go live and you're stressed.
Yeah.
Girl, we are just here to hang out. That's what we're doing here. This is just the most chill time.
Yeah.
We just pretend like there's not even anything going on.
That's
and
true.
just pretend like there's not millions of people watching worldwide and you'll be fine.
You're not helping.
We want to welcome you guys. Thanks for tuning in a little bit early. Today, we're going to just hang out here with Lina.
Yeah.
We're going to see what you guys have been up to. We want to see your engagement in the chat because we really do want to hang out with you or feel like we hang out with you by seeing what's going on in the chat. So feel free to let us know you're here on Facebook or on YouTube. Let us know what looking or watching this morning looks like for you.
Yeah.
I know that it's looked different for people over the spans of the COVID season. Some people started just watching on their phones, and then now people got these all crazy elaborate setups. So we'd love to know what's going on with you guys at home and what your viewing experience is like. If you're watching with people, not just yourself, we would love to know that. So give a shout out and let us know that you are here. And so we feel like we're not alone up here on this stage, just the two of us, and we would love to engage with you. What we're also going to do is after the kids' break, which will happen in the middle of the pre-service, we're going to get an update from Lina about Butter and Cup.
Yeah.
So Butter and Cup is the coffee shop that's in Mayfield West, that's connected to Renew Mayfield West campus. And we're going to get an update from Lina because Lina works there.
Yes.
And so she's going to tell us how that's been going, how they've adapted to the season, and just keep us in the know of what we can be not just praying for, but what we can be driving up there to order.
Yeah, you guys have to come and visit us.
I'm a huge fan of Butter and Cup. Huge fan. Have been from the start. So we'll get there. We'll talk about that in a little bit. But outside of Butter and Cup, Lina, what are you doing in this season? What does your life look like?
Well, it's busy. It is busy. I am working and at home. I live with the Reiningers, so that's always great. Love that family.
Yeah, talk about busy.
4 kids, a puppy, a really not so nice puppy sometimes.
So you don't love the puppy either?
I love the puppy. He's so cute, but when he's getting into everything.
Dude's doing puppy things.
Then he's not so cute.
I don't even remember when that ends. We had a puppy not long ago, and I just don't remember when that ends.
Yeah.
So I wish I could give you guys some hope and say, don't worry, it's just around the corner. That ends, but I don't even know if it does.
I don't know.
I'm sorry.
Yeah, and then he looks at you, and he's like, and you want to cuddle with him, you want to hug him, but then you remember all of the things that he's just destroyed. Yeah, so it's definitely a test of patience.
For sure, I could imagine.
Yeah, and I've been working on Renew Kids with Anna and
Yes,
Liam.
you have. You guys are doing an excellent job.
Thank
I can't wait to
you.
talk about that and then see today's program.
Yeah. You know, when people say you've been doing a great job and you feel good about it, then you watch it and you're like,
right.
oh my God.
That is my life now, isn't it?
Yeah. And I just have to laugh at myself because I feel like I'm acting ridiculous, but I know we're doing it for the kids.
Yes,
right?
it's for the kids, for sure.
Yeah.
But even kids nowadays have a pretty high standard, right? I feel more judged by kids than I do by adults.
Right.
I feel like it used to be the other way around where anything would please a child.
Yeah.
Now it's anything would please an adult, especially with tech and media stuff.
Right.
They're you can just do a mediocre job with whatever you're doing and it looks good and they're wow, they're impressed by it. But kids, they're not easily impressed anymore. No, or
they know how to swipe next or swipe up on the iPod or iPad, and you're like, you just swiped past me.
Have you been at home and the Reininger kids are supposed to be watching Renew Kids segment and they're boring and swipe on?
No, thankfully not. And I'm really appreciative of that. They get really excited when we get the first viewing of it and they get to see it. So that's really cool. And
I guess Lina and Mom are on it, so that's the cool factor too.
Yeah. And honestly, it's cool doing it with friends, right? I'm really great friends with Anna and Liam. I've gotten to get to know them through Renew, and it's a good time.
I think that comes out. it comes out in the video that you guys actually like each other too, which is great.
Yeah, because if we hated each other, I feel like that.
Yeah.
I mean, we don't hate each other, but like if it was uncomfortable, I feel like, yeah, it'd be like,
yeah, that's what it is on video. And people notice that. They can sense that.
Right.
It's crazy.
Yeah.
It's like every time Wade and I get up here on the pre-service, everyone's like, ooh, I can feel the awkward tension, because he's a Rays fan, obviously.
Right.
And
I think they won.
They did. They did.
Yeah. I didn't watch it. I just
they actually did a great job. It was a great baseball game.
Yeah.
Look at that. Lena's up here talking about baseball. See, it's not just Wade and I. Lena's up here talking about baseball.
Yeah.
So
I do enjoy baseball. I didn't watch the Rays, though. I kind of heard Wade screaming.
I could imagine what it was like in your house yesterday.
And for a second was like, oh my goodness, something's wrong. But then I was like, oh, baseball. That's right.
It was a wild game. It was a great playoff game. Anyway, we'll move on from baseball. What we do want to know is if you have kids and those kids are watching Renew Kids, we would love to get your feedback. So just post in the stream here, letting us know how your kids have been engaging with it. And if there's anything we can help you with, you can always reach out to us and let us know ways that we can help your kids get engaged more in the Renew Kids programming.
Yeah.
We have something actually coming up for Renew Kids. Do you know about it?
I do.
What is the thing that we're doing for Renew Kids? Because that's cool and exciting.
Yeah, we're going to do a Zoom party next Sunday. So for ages 3 to 5, it'll be at 4 p.m. And then ages 6 to 10 will be at 5 p.m. So the link will be sent out. You have to sign your kids up for it just so that we know how many children to expect, especially in the different age groups, right? And yeah, it's a costume party. So dress up, like whatever you can find at home, dollar store. Like it doesn't have to be fancy or anything like that. But yeah, we wanted to do that, to have a good time with all the kids online and at home. So I'm looking forward to that. We're working on our costumes.
Yeah. What do you have? Is it a secret, or do you have like maybe some hints to drop? Like, what are you working on?
To be honest, I don't know yet.
Okay,
Like, we're talking about a couple of different things. Like, should we all do a theme together? Should we do separate costumes? Like, what are we gonna do? But yeah, so it's in the works. And it'll be next Sunday, so that'll be fun.
There it is. Next Sunday, November the 1st. RenewKids.ca/RenewKids. All the information you need to know about Renew Kids and how to get your kids connected, how to be engaging as much as you can, any content that you need for at home based on the programming that they're doing. All that can be found at Renew Kids or RenewChurch.ca/Renew-Kids.
Yes.
You'll be able to find it there. So
and we also have a Facebook page. So we've created a
You have
Renew
a Facebook
Kids.
page?
Yes, we're on Facebook.
Woo.
So it's easier. We've started to add parents in. We'll keep you guys updated. If you have videos or pictures or anything like that of like your children, like send a picture of Winona on Sunday morning.
We will be.
Ashton, please.
We have missed pictures of her on the stream, haven't we?
Yeah.
Someone was like, there's a lot of pictures of your daughter up there. And I was like, yeah, shameless plug. But then we kind of pulled back from it. But now I have a new outlet.
You do, yeah. So, like, send us pictures, videos of your kids watching us. For the month of November, we want pictures and videos of what the kids are thankful for, and we can air those. So, yeah, on the Facebook, you'll find all things Renew Kids.
Can they find the Facebook link on renewchurch.ca/renew-kids?
Yes.
They can find it there.
I'm pretty certain.
And then somebody's posting the link on the streams on YouTube and Facebook to make this as easy as possible. And I think it's a closed group, so you need an invite to it or something like that.
Yes.
That way it's obviously safe and it's just people who are connected to our church. If you see unfamiliar people on there, it's because they go to a campus that you don't go to.
Right.
But we are keeping it pretty closed, and we are only accepting people who come to Renew Church for obvious reasons. So you don't have to worry about that.
Yeah, and there will be like games and activities to do at home, that sort of stuff. So it'll be an easier way to get connected to Renew Kids.
That's fun. I'm glad you guys are doing everything you can right now to connect with the kids. I feel like the kids miss it the most because like kids aren't on Facebook, on social media, keeping up with what's going on in the world, right?
Yeah.
Kids just hang out with who they're close to, and they can't hang out with people right now. So I feel like you guys are doing your best to try to keep them engaged, try to create some level of normalcy for them, at least with church stuff. And then also, I think that's so cool that you guys are doing the Zoom call and the Zoom party for kids to see their friends. And like you and I might be worn out from Zoom, but a 5-year-old's not worn out from Zoom. That's the coolest thing to see your friend on video. So
yeah, and your friend in a costume, right? And like giggle about what you guys are wearing. And yeah, so yeah, it's definitely been a different time. I miss the kids that I used to teach. Like, it's hard not to be able to play a game with them and actually see them, but at least this way they're still getting to see us and connect, and now they'll be able to see their friends over Zoom, and so we're doing the best that we can.
Well,
right?
On behalf of parents at Renewed Church, thank you for the work that you guys are doing. My daughter actually watches the whole thing. She's 1.5, and she watches the whole thing and enjoys it.
I get videos from Ashton of Winona saying, Lina.
Yes.
Like, yes.
She loves seeing you up there. So it's so fun. Any kid from any age can tune in and engage with it. Obviously, it's different levels of engagement, but we're doing what we can. So stay tuned with that. Hey, Krista Weaver says, good morning, Renewed Church family. Thanks to Mike Weaver, your husband, who was on the ball and just turned the live stream on the TV. I love people who watch it on their TV. I think that's so cool. I just picture myself sitting on a comfortable couch at home with this nice big TV enjoying church. I think that's the way to do it.
Yeah.
If you have a smart TV, you can just put Facebook Watch or YouTube on your smart TV, and you can engage there on the live stream. That's a great idea. Violet saying, good morning, Renew Church family. Well, good morning to you, Violet. And good morning to Jennifer Sabrin. Sherry Pepin is here saying good morning. We want to welcome you guys. Thanks for tuning in. Carolyn Bueller says the kiddos are registered for the Zoom party, and they're looking forward to it.
Yes, that's awesome.
Yes, they are.
I'm sure the Buellers will come up with a great costume.
Oh, they're so creative.
Yes.
And so fun.
Yeah, I'm excited for that.
Now that the Bueller boys are in, I think every one of your kids are going to want to be there. You don't want to miss a hangout,
absolutely.
a Zoom party hangout with the Bueller boys. I did want to reference something really quick. This is not a shameless plug. This is actually thanking other people who did this, but if you notice my shirt this morning, it says, we need more of your good preaching. Not that I'm a good preacher, but I got this shirt from someone today as a gift, because apparently it is Pastor Appreciation Month.
A whole month.
A whole month for pastors to be appreciated, and it did take a whole month for someone in our church to appreciate us, but it came, and it's great. No, it was so sweet. William and Esther and Lemuel and Inga and their whole group put together a gift for us, and that was really, really kind and sweet of them. They dropped it off this morning, and so we have more Tim Hortons than we know what to do with this morning.
Yeah, and I appreciate them appreciating the pastors, because I can appreciate the goodies today.
Yeah, you do. You get to reap the benefits of hanging out this morning.
Yes.
So you're welcome for that.
Yeah.
Now, all those treats are not going to help me fit into the shirt any better than I already do, but it's all going to be worth it. So thank you guys for thinking about us and appreciating us. And if there's any other pastors who are actually watching the live stream right now and engaging with us, we want you to know that we appreciate the work you do. We especially understand the difficulty of the season that you're in. People don't realize it, but this is a really, really difficult season for a lot of pastors. A lot of them are struggling and having a difficult time adapting to things.
Yeah.
And there's a lot of stuff wrapped into that. And so if you know a pastor, not me, not somebody here necessarily in the studio, but you know someone, a friend or a family member or a pastor of a former church or something like that you've been connected to, it would be really nice before the end of the month if you just sent them a short note saying, hey, look, I understand this difficult season. I understand that you guys are doing things you never thought you'd have to do. I understand you're doing your best, and just know that you are appreciated for doing what you do. It's a great idea, and it's a great way to feel, send some love to some pastors around the community. So do that for us, not for us, for them.
The other pastors, yes.
So, but thank you guys for doing that. It was really thoughtful.
Yeah.
We're about to jump into the Renew Kids segment.
Yes.
What's going to happen for those who are just tuning in, if you don't know, is we're going to take a 2-minute break here during the live stream, the pre-service, and we're going to give you a chance to actually get tuned in to the Renew Kids segment. And so what you do is you just go over to renewchurch.ca/renew-kids, and you will be able to get your kids connected to what's going on with Renew Kids.
Yes.
And our recommendation is do that on a separate device so that you can hang out with us here on the pre-service, as Lina and I are going to talk about Butter and Cup in just a little bit.
Yep.
And your kids can just be on their headphones, on their separate device, in the same room or in a separate room, enjoying the kids' programming for today.
Yeah.
So that's our recommendation to you. We're going to give you a couple minutes to get that set up. Just follow the links and the paths to where you need to go, and we look forward to connecting with you again in just a couple of minutes to talk about Butter and Cup. Thanks for tuning in with us. Welcome back to the Renew Church live stream pre-service. My name is Andrew. I'm one of the pastors here at Renew Church, and if you weren't tuned in earlier with us, I'm here with a guest, Lina Kohli. She's hanging out with us this morning. She was hanging out with us earlier to tell us some stuff about Renew Kids because she's involved in that, and our hopes were that you were able to get your kids connected to the Renew Kids programming this morning because Lina is highlighted on there. They're doing a great job with that, so if you haven't had a chance to do that, run on over to our website, renewchurch.ca/renew-kids, and get your kids connected. But what we want to do is spend the next 10 minutes or so talking about Butter and Cup.
Yes.
For those of you who don't know, Butter and Cup is a coffee shop in the Mayfield West community that actually was one of the centerpieces of starting a church in that community. And so it has been used as a missional tool in the community to reach and connect with and interact with people in the community.
Yeah.
And they've been serving coffee and treats for many years now.
Yeah.
And I have always loved it. I can't go to Mayfield West without stopping at Butter and Cup. My wife and I go and visit my family there like every other week or so.
Yeah.
And before and after we leave their house, we make a stop at Butter and Cup for a coffee and always a scone.
Always.
So Lina, tell us about your connection to Butter and Cup, and it's actually your connection to Renew Mayfield West is because of your connection to Butter and Cup. So tell us about that, because people don't know that story necessarily.
Yeah. So I'm Lina.
Yes.
And I've been working at Butter and Cup for about a year and a half now. I think a little bit more than that. But when I started working at Butter and Cup, I visited and it seemed like a great place to work. There was worship music playing. I had a scone, of course, got hooked on the scone.
Of course you did.
Yeah, and it just seemed like the vibe was amazing. Of course, you walk in and worship music is playing, the vibe automatically changes. So that was really great. And then, I got connected to Renewed Church through Butter and Cup, I guess through Wade.
Yeah.
Yeah, Wade was just being Wade. And
Wade finds a Christian is like, you're coming to my church. You're coming.
Yeah.
And you're like, yeah, I guess I am.
Yeah.
That's what we're doing.
Yeah, and I became really close friends with Anna and just the girls there working at Butter and Cup. And it was just, it's a very positive environment to work at and to partner with Renew and to serve with. It's just been great, yeah.
Yeah, and so Butter and Cup has been around for, I guess, 4+ years, maybe on 5 years now.
Yeah.
And then all of a sudden we hit this pandemic that we all know about, and things had to change. And I know, talking to quite a few people in our church who are small business owners, especially of kind of food and service establishments, that it's not been an easy transition. Obviously, a lot of the government protocols are in and around seating inside and service and all that kind of stuff. And so I guess we're wondering how Butter and Cup is doing in the COVID season, and then what are some things that you guys have done to adapt in this season?
Yeah, so it's definitely different. It looks different. It's just we've had to adapt in different ways because of COVID. Vince has done a really great job at figuring out with our team on how best to continue to serve customers. So we were closed for about 6 weeks when COVID had first hit and people were quarantining and that kind of stuff. We were closed and just everybody put their heads together over Zoom on what to do. Vince did a lot of research and through, different protocols and monitoring Peel restrictions and all that kind of stuff, because we are part of Peel. We had to figure out how to best serve customers with a smile and with excellence and just continue to be the light, right?
Yeah, and I've been to Butter and Cup quite a few times since COVID, and I can tell you from firsthand experience that the experience hasn't really changed. I still feel the same way. I still feel like I'm treated the same way that I was always treated, which was always with kindness and with generosity and with love and with great service and, again, great coffee and great scones. But so that hasn't really changed. But what has changed about the service? What does it look like if people can't come and sit down like they used to, or just, hang around there for 8 hours and work like I used to sometimes? Right. What does it look like right now?
Yeah, so it's different. We've now moved to window service. So we've had window service for about 4 months now.
Cool.
And so the Reininger family and myself went in and we painted one of our windows with hope, like a mosaic, so that when you're driving, people are still able to see just the word hope, and hopefully that brightens up their day and just reminds them. But we've moved to window service and online ordering.
Okay.
So what it looks like is when you walk up to the window, it says order here, and you would come up to us, one of us, and you'd place your order. Now, all of us are wearing masks, and we try to stay 6 feet apart indoors as well. And so you order, we grab your scone and your coffee. We wipe down the debit machine. We're just trying to be as safe as we possibly can for ourselves and for the customers that we're serving.
Yeah, you guys have been very, very strict about that for great reasons, because you're trying to serve your community well, which I love. And it is cool. It's kind of a drive-through experience is really what it is, but without cars.
Without cars,
you just pull up and it's a walk-through experience.
Yeah.
But you guys have done an excellent job, and
Thanks.
I don't feel like anything has really changed about the service there, other than I just can't sit inside,
right.
which we can't do. So
Yeah.
I love the way that you guys have adapted, and the way you've opened up the windows to be service windows. It's super creative and thoughtful, and I think you guys have done an excellent job with that.
Yeah, thanks.
Yeah.
We've gone to a limited menu just for now, so we just stuck to what we know how to do best, which is coffee and treats. So, of course, we still have the scones, and we're still serving our espresso drinks.
Now, you guys have experimented with some different scone flavors in the season. Just so you know, I cannot go to Butter and Cup and not order a cheddar and chive scone warmed up with butter, and that dates back to Genevieve Amaral made the perfect cheddar chive scone. I've never had anything that matched it.
Yes.
It's so good, and I still get it every time I'm there. But scone flavors, is there any that you've experimented with in this season that you're like, that's going to stick, or that's a highlight? You should come check one of those out or something like that.
So, I mean, throughout the different seasons that we go through, right, fall, winter, spring, summer, we always change up the scone flavors. So that we're keeping up with the season. So right now, we've got pumpkin spice, apple caramel, cinnamon sugar. I love cinnamon sugar.
Is that your new favorite?
It's my new favorite.
All right.
I mean,
you heard it here first. Lina says cinnamon sugar is her new favorite. You have to go get one before they're all gone.
Yeah, all of the scone flavors are great. We've got the classics. We've got blueberry lemon, cheddar and chive. Those are the ones, that we won't ever not make.
Because everyone always buys them still
Always,
because people love them. Man, so
good. But when different seasons come, we experiment with different flavors, and we try to see what works, what do customers like, what's something that maybe a lot of people aren't buying. So we just try to keep it fresh, keep it going, right?
Yeah, you guys have always done an excellent job of that. And as a missional enterprise, because if you guys didn't know, Butter and Cup was started as a missional enterprise. It was a for-profit business, but the goal was ultimately to connect with people in Mayfield West, and for the ultimate purpose of sharing Jesus with them. And so the big part of that is just building relationships in the community. So is there any relationships that have been formed in this season uniquely, or any kind of new stories that you can tell us about things happening at Butter and Cup, relationships, people you're connecting with in the community, anything like that?
Well, I mean, in this season, it is difficult.
For sure.
I mean, it's been hard to make more relationships. Now, we've seen our old customers coming back, and we've seen newer faces as well, which is always a pleasure. When we first reopened, we had a lot of our returning customers coming back and saying, we're so happy that you're open again. We've missed you. It just brought back a sense of normalcy, right? You're going into work, or even if people are working from home, they can stop by and get a latte like they normally did and get a scone, or we've seen people come in the morning and grab a cookie for their kids' lunch boxes or something like that. So it's been really encouraging for us to see our returning customers. And I haven't worked there for as long as the other girls have. So I know from hearing stories from them, it's nice for them to see a customer that have been coming for like 4 years, continuing to come and saying, we're so happy that you're open.
Right.
Although what we're still trying to be gracious with customers, patient, keeping a smile, being as safe as we can for us and for them. And because we know that people are watching, right? And we want to show the light of Christ continuously, even if this season of struggle is a struggle for everybody. We want to serve with a smile still, and to do what we know how to do.
Just being open, it gives people a sense of hope.
Yeah.
Being open in a place that's familiar to them, and people that they're familiar with them, that they've always been treated with kindness and love and generosity from.
Yeah.
It does so much more than I think we even understand and imagine. People like Anna, who have been working there for this whole time and are still working there. I know when I show up to Buttercup, when I see your guys' faces that are familiar to me, it just makes me feel. It makes me feel safe. It makes me feel like things are okay and things are going to be all right. So just continuing to do service and providing good service means a lot to people. So thank you guys for doing that and all the work that you guys have put into adapting in this season.
Yeah.
And I want to tell you, if you have not been up to Buttercup in Mayfield West, it's worth the trip. Just head on up there. It's on your way to Caledon. It's worth just driving up there for. But if you're driving up somewhere further north, just stop by Buttercup on your way anywhere north and hang out with these people. Grab the scones. You have to get like a pack of 6 scones and try a variety and stuff like that. Get yourself some good third wave coffee. It is so worth stopping at. And we just love what you guys are doing, and thank you guys for continuing to do it.
Well,
thanks for being here this morning, hanging out on the pre-service. We're about to jump into a short break before we start our service. And so I want to thank you guys for joining us in the pre-service and look forward to the start of our service in just a few moments this morning. We look forward to worshiping as a church together with you guys online. Thanks again for joining us. Well, welcome everybody to Renew Church's live stream Sunday morning service. My name is Andrew, and I'm one of the pastors here at Renew Church, and I want to thank you for tuning in with us this morning. We are live, and we are going to worship as a community together this morning, us here in studio, and hopefully with you at home, in your living rooms, in your basements, outside in your garages or somewhere. We just look forward to worshiping together and being unified in heart and in mind and in spirit together, honoring and glorifying our God together as a church community here. So thank you for tuning in. I want to tell you about a few things that are happening in the life of our church, things that you should know about and things that you might want to be connected to in order to be growing and in order to serve alongside us as a church. The first thing I want to tell you about is unrelated to us, but it connects with us, is that daylight savings is next weekend. And so if you're one of those people who, I don't know if there's any of you who exist, but who doesn't have a smartphone and who actually uses a clock and you have to turn it back, don't forget to do that for next Sunday. We used to have to announce this all the time because people would show up an hour late on Sundays before everybody had alarm clocks that were on their phones. But if you're one of those people, don't forget, daylight savings is next weekend, so don't forget to turn your clocks back. I want to tell you about our Big Night Out service that is coming up on Sunday, November the 15th. This is a chance for our whole church to get together in one place for a worship service. And right now we have that on our schedule for the 15th of November in the afternoon, evening, and we are inviting you to sign up for that now. Now, obviously, we don't know what protocol will be by then, but we're looking forward to everybody signing up and knowing the numbers before we jump into it. And if we are able to run that Big Night Out service in Peel, we will run it. And so please go on over to the website, renewchurch.ca, and sign your family up so that we know that you are attending, and do that now. Whether or not we're able to do it on the 15th, we want you to sign up to make sure that if we are able to do it, that you are committed to coming. So go do that for us. It's going to be a great service together to worship together as a church and as a community. And connected to that is baptisms. Normally at our Big Night Out, we do baptisms. And in order to do baptisms, we are looking to see if there are other people who are wanting to get baptized. And so if you've been thinking about baptism for a little while and you just haven't taken that step of faith in your life or in your faith journey, we encourage you to reach out to us and connect with us here at Renew Church. And we would love to take you through a study on baptism. Now, the study is non-committal. You can go through the study and then still choose to not get baptized after, but it's a chance for you to understand baptism and how we view it here at Renew Church and what the process is for baptism here at Renew Church. And so we would love to take you through that. If you've ever been curious about baptism, we're going to be running one of those classes next Sunday evening at 7 p.m. Pastor Mitch is going to run that. And so if you are interested in that, if that connects with you in any kind of way, we want you to go over to our website. You can do this now, renewchurch.ca/connect, and fill out the Connect card there and let us know that you're interested in getting connected with the baptism course, learning more about it, and doing the study with Pastor Mitch next weekend at 7 p.m. And so please do that for us. I want to tell you about the Renew Kids Costume Zoom party that is coming up. Lina referenced it in the pre-service today. That is coming up next Sunday on November the 1st. It's going to be at 4 p.m. For ages 3 to 5 and 5 p.m. for ages 6 to 10. And there's a sign-up link in our website. And so if you want to get connected with that, you have kids, we would love for you to have them join us for the Zoom costume party for Renew Kids. In order to do that, just go over to renewchurch.ca/renew-kids, and you can find all the information there. Almost everything you need is found on our website, and so you should have that pulled up on your phone beside you if you're watching on your TV right now and be engaging with that. The final thing I want to tell you about is about our fellowship and a prayer initiative in our fellowship. Some of you guys realize, and some of you don't, that we are a part of a larger fellowship of churches. It's actually a global alliance of churches. There's thousands of churches that are connected to this alliance called Charis Alliance. In the month of November, we are praying for the different churches. And so starting on November 1st, we're going to have a prayer walk that we're inviting every church connected to our fellowship to participate in. And you're going to see a video just after this that's going to give you more information on that. But we encourage you, as a part of our church here at Renew Church, connected to the Charis Alliance, to participate in the month of November praying for the churches all over the world that are connected to the Charis Fellowship. And so I want to invite you to stay tuned and watch this short video and then act on that video afterwards by going on over to the website charisalliance.org and learning more about this prayer initiative in the month of November. So thanks for tuning in for the announcements. I want you to stay tuned and check out this video, and we'll jump into worship after that.
Together, we have accomplished amazing things. Even as the pandemic gripped the nations, God continued to build his kingdom, and countless people have experienced the hope of Christ in tangible ways. In Latin America, Charis Alliance churches planned and executed 62 projects to provide relief in 6 countries. These churches distributed groceries, masks, household items, Bibles, evangelistic materials, and even toys. They provided food and blankets to homeless people. They also offered emotional and spiritual support. In Argentina, more than 15 non-believing families received help and hope, and 35 children received assistance in Rio Cuarto alone. Members of the Charis Church of Cordoba have made over 1,000 face masks and distributed them with evangelistic materials. In Chile, Charis Church members distributed 150 masks and gospel brochures. In Guatemala, 16 families received counseling and carpentry training. In the Central African Republic, pastors and their wives, as well as widows of pastors, were reminded of God's care and provision for them through financial gifts. Charis churches in Nigeria distributed food and supplies to those in need. In Central Asia, Charis Alliance church members shared food, the gospel message, and the Jesus film with people in their communities. In the Philippines, Charis churches provided meals for children in their neighborhoods. As they went, they distributed relief supplies and shared the gospel in their communities. One Charis partner traveled up into the mountain villages, bringing groceries and the gospel to remote communities. Over the course of these efforts, more than 20 Filipinos put their faith in Jesus. Thank you for supporting the churches and ministry partners of the Charis Alliance. We could not have done any of this without your help. Now, let's keep it going. Together, we will keep blessing the nations as we continue to support the work of the Charis Alliance.
I trust you're encouraged as you see what we've accomplished together over the past several months. And if you're like me, you just want to do more for the nations. Imagine what may happen if thousands of people around the world committed to pray for this global network of churches and their outreach ministries into their local communities. That's why I'm inviting you to the Charis Global Prayer Walk. Each day in November, we'll send you some brief information about a specific country in the Charis Alliance, along with specific prayer requests from our ministry leaders who live and work there. I look forward to praying along with you in November. Would you take a moment right now to sign up using the link on the screen?
Good morning, everyone. It is so great to be here with you all this morning. I just ask that you would join with us as we sing and worship to God this morning. I raise a hallelujah in the presence of my enemies. I raise a hallelujah gonna hear my praises roar up from the ashes. Hope will arise. Death is defeated. The King is alive. I'm gonna sing in the middle of the storm, louder and louder. You're gonna hear my praises roar up from the ashes. Hope will arise. Death is defeated. The King is alive. Sing a little louder. 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 Sing a little louder.
Good morning, and welcome to week 6 of our series called The Crown. This morning's scripture reading is from the book of 1 Samuel, chapter 18, and I invite you to read along with us. After David had finished talking with Saul, Jonathan became one in spirit with David, and he loved him as himself. From that day, Saul kept David with him and did not let him return home to his family. And Jonathan made a covenant with David because he loved him as himself. Jonathan took off the robe he was wearing and gave it to David along with his tunic and even his sword, his bow, and his belt. Whatever mission Saul sent him on, David was so successful that Saul gave him a high rank in the army. This pleased all the troops and Saul's officers as well. When the men were returning home after David had killed the Philistine, the women came out from all of the towns of Israel to meet King Saul with singing and dancing, with joyful songs and with timbrels and lyres. And as they danced, they sang, "Saul has slain his thousands, and David his tens of thousands." Saul was very angry. This refrain displeased him greatly. They have credited David with tens of thousands, he thought, but me with only thousands. What more can he get but the kingdom? And from that time on, Saul kept a close eye on David. The next day, an evil spirit from God came forcefully on Saul. He was prophesying in his house while David was playing the lyre as he usually did. Saul had a spear in his hand, and he hurled it, saying to himself, "I'll pin David to the wall," but David eluded him twice. Saul was afraid of David because the Lord was with David, but he had departed from Saul. So he sent David away from him and gave him command over 1,000 men, and David led the troops in their campaigns. In everything he did, he had great success because the Lord was with him. When Saul saw how successful he was afraid of him. But all Israel and Judah loved David because he led them in their campaigns. Saul said to David, "Here is my older daughter, Merab. I will give her to you in marriage. Only serve me bravely and fight the battles of the Lord." For Saul said to himself, "I will not raise a hand against him. Let the Philistines do that." But David said to Saul, "Who am I, and what is my family or my clan in Israel that I should become the king's son-in-law?" So when the time came for Merab, Saul's daughter, to be given to David, she was given in marriage to Adriel of Meholah. Now Saul's daughter Michal was in love with David, And when they told Saul about it, he was pleased. I will give her to him, he thought, so that she may be a snare to him, and so that the hand of the Philistines may be against him. So Saul said to David, now you have a second opportunity to become my son-in-law. Then Saul ordered his attendants, speak to David privately and say, look, the king likes you, and his attendants all love you. Now become his son-in-law. They repeated these words to David, but David said, do you think it's a small matter to become the king's son-in-law? I am only a poor man and little known. When Saul's servants told him what David had said, Saul replied, say to David, the king wants no other price for the bride than 100 Philistine foreskins to take revenge on his enemies. Saul's plan was to have David fall by the hands of the Philistines. So when the attendants told David these things, he was pleased to become the king's son-in-law. So before the allotted time elapsed, David took his men with him and went out and killed 200 Philistines and brought back their foreskins. They counted out the full number to the king so that David might become the king's son-in-law. Then Saul gave him his daughter Michal in marriage. When Saul realized that the Lord was with David and that his daughter Michal loved David, Saul became still more afraid of him, and he remained his enemy for the rest of his days. The Philistine commanders continued to go out to battle, and as often as they did, David met with more success than the rest of Saul's officers, and his name became well known.
Well, welcome back to The Crown, everybody. We're glad that you're joining us again this morning at Renew Church Online. We're going through the study of 1st and 2nd Samuel. That's what this theme is for The Crown. And we've seen now that David has slain Goliath, the giant. His popularity is rising. He has been privately anointed by Samuel, the prophet. He's going to be the next king of Israel. And Saul has no idea. He doesn't know that that is coming. Well, today's story is going to be one of jealousy and drama and friendship. There's a little bit of everything in today's lesson. So we're going to pick it up starting at chapter 18. We're just going to go from chapter 18 to chapter 20 today. And the first title of this first section in chapter 18 is Saul's Growing Fear of David. Now, we ended last week by seeing that David kills Goliath, and Saul asks Abner, his cousin and also the commander of his army, whose son is this kid? He wants to know. And it seems a little bit odd if we've been tracking through the story, because David had already played the lyre for Saul at his palace. He had even conversed with him prior to fighting Goliath, if you remember, and tried on his armor. But it's not too hard to imagine that a king like Saul didn't pay too close attention to who was playing music for him, or even the one that was going out to try to fight this giant. He was probably just happy that anyone was willing to go out and make that attempt. It's also probably a bit of a hint that Saul really didn't take a personal interest in people the way that we see David taking an interest in people. And that's going to be another contrasting, point here in the lives of these two men. But now Saul wants to know, who is this kid? And so David is ushered in before Saul. Goliath's head is still in his hand when he comes in. And I can tell you from this point forward, Saul is going to have no trouble at all remembering this young man, the son of Jesse. Well, during his first conversation with Saul, Saul's son Jonathan is there, and he could see that he really liked this guy David. Very quickly, the two became like brothers. And from that point on, Saul actually chose to keep David there at the palace to be with him instead of returning home to his family. And that way he could make use of him, and he started to make use of him in his military, gave him a high rank in the army, and sent him off regularly to fight battles. And as we see in the story, David becomes very popular. When he returns home from victories, the women of the town are singing a song that says that Saul has killed his thousands, but David has killed his tens of thousands. And as you can imagine, Saul, who we've seen to this point is fearful, somewhat insecure, he gets very angry and jealous at this. I want to pause here just a minute. You've heard it in the reading this morning, but I want to pause here and highlight this really important truth, and that is that envy and jealousy are really a special kind of sin when you look at the Bible. We know that all sin, any sin is enough to separate us from God and His holiness, but we also know that different sins have different impacts on us in our lives. And, jealousy and envy are a special kind of evil. Of course, we know that it was jealousy that brought Lucifer down, right? Satan fell because of his pride and that jealousy and envy of God and the role that he had. This is also the sin that brings a lot of us down on a day-to-day basis. And we can glean from various passages in the Bible, just how this sin opens the door to the devil in our lives like few other sins does. In James chapter 3, verse 16, it says, "For where you have envy and selfish ambition," that's the same kind of sin we're talking about, James says, "there you find disorder and every evil practice." And guys, this is exactly what we're going to see in the life of Saul today. Once this jealousy gets in, everything starts going south for Saul. You see it there in verse 10. Now, I want to make a little note here. It's extremely important to guard against envy and jealousy. And really, the only way to overcome it is through humility and brokenness. You really have to get to the point where you humble yourself and you're truly broken to not allow envy and jealousy to really, take over your entire life. And it takes a spiritual person to acknowledge when these feelings are coming upon them. And so be aware of that. If you're becoming a spiritually mature person, one of the things that you're learning to manage is, envy and jealousy that come your way when someone else maybe succeeds or does something that you would like to be known for. This is really a sign of maturity to be able to handle this. And so let me give you some advice. The next time that you feel jealous, just admit those feelings and actually go to the point of blessing the person that you are jealous of. I would really encourage you in this. This can be a really effective way of just overcoming that jealousy. Pray for them. Jesus talked about praying for your enemies. These people may not be your enemies, but, in the sense that they're causing you to be jealous, you may feel that. And so I think the same advice would apply, and that is to pray for those people and to bless them as Jesus told us to. I would say it's the only way to get free of this. It takes a lot of humility and brokenness. Well, someone should have given that advice to Saul because he does not handle things well here as it relates to his jealousy. In verse 10 it says, "The next day an evil spirit from God came forcefully upon Saul." He was prophesying when he decides to actually hurl a spear at David. And we're going to see this becomes a pattern for him. Well, this brings up a couple of really important questions that I think we have to take a second and just address, because there's questions that are just sort of buzzing in your head. If you don't go back and address these, you're like, whoa, this doesn't quite make sense. And the first big question here is, does God actually send evil spirits upon people? Is this something that God actually does? This has been a much debated question, as you can imagine, because we know that God is good, and we've often been taught that God is not the author of evil because there is no evil in God. We also know from the book of Job, however, that Satan and his demons will approach God. We see that in the story of Job, how Satan comes before the presence of God and asks for permission to act against people, Job in that story. But we can assume that this is something that happens regularly. And I would see this in the same light here. God is giving that sort of permission. He is not the one that's the author of this evil, but he is giving permission to Satan to approach, this person. And so God is acting here in accordance with Saul's will. I would say it's very comparable to what we see back in the book of Exodus when Pharaoh hardened his heart, and then it says that God also hardened Pharaoh's heart. Once Pharaoh was set in a direction, God kind of confirmed that and came against him in a certain way. And so, guys, we need to fear God. We also need to fear the evil one, because he is present and he is making overtures to try to overtake us and to influence us negatively in our lives. Let me ask you this question. Are you even aware of the spiritual battle that's going on around you all of the time? Even this morning, as you're sitting here taking in this message, do you realize that there are spiritual forces that are interested in what you're doing and that are working against you and against your progress in your spiritual life and in your relationship with God? Are you aware that evil is constantly seeking access to you and to your life? Do you remember what Jesus said to Peter in Luke chapter 22? He said, "Simon, Simon, Satan has asked to sift all of you as wheat," Peter and the other disciples. He says, "But I have prayed for you, Simon, that your faith may not fail." And so you see even there this same pattern where Satan is having to ask for permission to have this impact. And once in a while, you know what? God will say, okay, just like he did with Job. Okay, you go ahead to a certain limit, you go ahead and do what you want to do. So most times, the child of God is completely ignorant to what's going on, but there is this reality in the spiritual realm that I want you to pay attention to today as we go through this. You know, some of you have been watching Netflix more than you probably should during this pandemic, but one of the shows that you may have taken in is this one called The Social Dilemma. It's become really popular. It's been out since September, and it's really just kind of talking about the danger of social media and the way that it impacts us, particularly our young people, who don't really have the ability to understand that they're being targeted by different companies and that there are logarithms built into the social media that they're ingesting that is actually feeding stuff to them, trying to keep them on the screen, trying to feed advertising to them, and it's all being driven by money, and it's all very destructive for our children. And I've heard many people have watched this and said, wow, this is crazy to know that this kind of thing is going on. Well, I want you to know this morning, if you think that is scary, you should be aware that, you know, Satan and his demons are studying you even more, and they're targeting you even more. They want to get to us. They want to get to your children, to your family. They are studying you, and they're wanting to bring you down. And they have been studying this kind of thing for a long time, and they understand what works and what buttons to push and what triggers us. And sometimes, you know what? Sometimes God will give the evil forces access to us. We see this pattern, that sometimes he will allow that and use that as a test to see if we can withstand. Well, guys, again, I'm going to ask you, are you preparing yourself on a daily basis for spiritual attack? This is a reality in the life of the follower of God. Ephesians chapter 6 talks about our need to put on the whole armor of God so that we can withstand when these troublesome times come our way. And it's time, guys, for Christians to wake up to the fact that we are in a real spiritual battle, in a spiritual world where spiritual things are happening all of the time. The greater reality of what we're experiencing is this spiritual dimension. Well, the second big question that comes up when you see Saul here hurling this spear at David is, how could Saul throw a spear at David when he was prophesying? Right? We look at this thing as prophesying. We say, well, that's like a spiritual function. This is like God coming upon somebody to, do great things for God or to give a message for God or whatever. And how could he, at the same time that he's being impacted by the Spirit of God, be hurling a spear trying to kill David? Well, we actually gained some helpful insight into the spiritual act of prophesying here. We mentioned earlier in this series that in the Old Testament, the Holy Spirit kind of came and went. His activity in a person wasn't always, in keeping with the spirituality of that person or their devotion to God. We see that with people like Samson. But we also seem to understand that it's not God's Spirit here that's at work in Saul. When you actually look at the passage, it is this evil spirit that has come upon him that seems to be impacting him. And so this leads us to the very natural question when you read this passage naturally. Can an evil spirit lead someone to prophesy? Is that possible? Well, to the best of our knowledge, this type of prophesying was kind of this uncontrolled, erratic sort of behavior. This is right from an NIV text note that says this is probably what was happening here, this sort of erratic type of behavior, almost this ecstatic state that people came into when this presence came upon them. We're going to see more of that at the end of chapter 19, actually, in today's lesson. But Saul sends men to capture David in that chapter, and God's Spirit comes over them, causing them to prophesy, again, this same sort of uncontrolled behavior. And they lose control of themselves. You're going to see that a little bit later. So here are some lessons that we can glean as it relates to prophesying and how we are supposed to understand it. The first thing I would point out is that not all prophesying involves giving a message from God. Most often in the New Testament, when we're looking at this gift of prophesying, that's what we're talking about. God coming upon someone to give them a message and to relay that to another person. This was particularly useful in the early church before they had the completed New Testament. And so this was a way that God would deliver his information through people in the gift of prophesying. But we've seen more extreme manifestations like this in modern day today. In certain churches, we've seen, what people have called the manifestation of the Spirit coming. I remember back in the 90s with what was called the Toronto Blessing, right? Where people were actually barking, even vomiting, and people were attributing that to the Holy Spirit. But this was a very different thing, it seems, that was happening than what we typically think of when we think of prophesying. So the first thing, not all prophesying involves, giving a message from God. The second thing is, not all prophesying is a sign of the Holy Spirit's presence. We have been actually taught in the New Testament to test the spirits to see if they are from God. And so we're seeing here in this passage that it's possible for an evil spirit to come upon you and to do things very similar and to create a reaction that could look similar to something that God might do in certain situations. And so not all prophesying is a sign of the Holy Spirit's presence. And then thirdly, it is very possible that an evil spirit can also cause someone to prophesy. And I'm talking in this kind of uncontrollable sort of sense like we see here with Saul. This is very much possible. Now, I'm not saying all this to scare you. I'm just saying it to help you to be wise as it relates to understanding how this gift works. I also urge you to remember that the New Testament calls us as believers not to seek crazy manifestations of the Spirit, which so many people seem eager to do today, but rather to walk in the Spirit, as we're encouraged so often to do, and to look for the fruit of the Spirit in our lives, like we see in Galatians. See, this is really what God is after and what the Holy Spirit is longing to produce in us. In fact, one of the fruits of the Spirit is self-control. And so this is the pattern, this is the normal thing that God does in our lives. When the Holy Spirit is present in our lives, we see this ability to control ourselves more. And so God can certainly come upon a person in any way that he wants and cause you to act in ways that are unpredictable. That is true, but I want you to know that's God's choice. And when God does that, he is the one that's choosing to do that. We live in an experience-hungry culture that would really be better served to pursue holiness than sensational experiences. I can tell you those sensational experiences don't always mean much, but true holiness and the fruit of the Spirit means a lot. Well, Saul is now in full paranoia mode as you get down to verse 12. David is just continuing to succeed, and Saul offers David his oldest daughter in marriage, but David humbly refuses, and it truly is from a point of view of humility. He just says, who am I to be married to the king's daughter? Well, and so this daughter goes on to marry someone else, but Saul's next daughter coming along really likes David. And so Saul looks at this and says, well, this might be a real opportunity for me to kind of use her to get to David. And he very intentionally is thinking this way. David, again out of humility, is about to decline the offer, but Saul decides to make a little bit of a deal. Now, Saul's motives are completely wrong, very malicious. He's hoping that, David will actually get killed in this process. He says, David, if you can bring me 100 Philistine foreskins, then I will give you Michal, my other daughter, in marriage. And once David hears this, he's like, oh, okay, well, although he was very humble and thought, who am I to have this daughter of the king? Now he's seeing it as, well, maybe I can kind of earn the right to marry his daughter. And so he goes out, and not only does he get 100 foreskins, he gets 200. And so he and his men go out and, in battle, They're killing Philistines and they're collecting these foreskins. And so David ends up coming back and marrying Michal, the daughter of Saul. And Saul, in all of this process, becomes even more afraid. As you can imagine, everything that David does works out. He comes back successful every time. Every trap that Saul sets for him, he just flies right through it. So David's name becomes very, very well known. When we get to chapter 19, it says here that Saul tries to kill David, and we're going to see that pretty clearly. And if you read through that chapter, I'm not going to read through it, but you'll see the whole story. Let me kind of resume it for you here. Saul pulls out all of the stops, and he actually goes public with his desire to kill David, at least to his own men and to his son Jonathan. He tells Jonathan and all of his men just to kill David whenever they get the opportunity to do so. Jonathan, of course, who loves David like a brother, warns him, and then he actually defends David to his father Saul. And he makes his dad swear that he won't kill him. Now, Saul swears that he won't, but we all know that that's not a sincere, promise that he's making. And the next time that David is back playing the harp for the king, sure enough, Saul once again tries to pin him to the wall with his spear. Well, David then escapes for good. He's had enough of the palace. This is getting very dangerous. And from that point on, he leaves the house of Saul. Saul's men go and watch over David's house and wait for him to come out of the house so that they can kill him. This is getting very intense. But Michal, David's wife, actually helps David to escape. If you see there in verse 13, she actually took an idol and placed it in David's bed. She put goat hair on top of the idol and put it there in the bed with the covers over it. And she stalls the men by saying that, well, David is sick in bed, and she's able to hold them off for a certain period of time until Saul finally says, get in there and get him. And so the soldiers go in, but by that point, David is far away. They find the idol with this goat hair, and then they're like angry at Michal. How could you betray us in this way? Well, there's another question that comes up here as you're reading through here, and this one naturally jumped to my mind, and that is, where did Michal get this idol from? Where is this idol coming from? She appears to have what we call a household god that was very common in Canaan at that time. We know the pagan nations used these idols. We also know from history that the Israelites sometimes would use what are known as teraphim to help them worship Yahweh. This is the excuse that they would give. Really what's happening, this is a form of syncretism. This is true worship of Yahweh blending with pagan forms of worship. We see this all of the time, even in the modern world, where people will join one group of faith, but then still try to hold on to the faith that they were coming out of. And this is the same thing back at that time. This is a form of syncretism that God would not have approved of. We know from the Ten Commandments, you're to have no graven image, whether it was to help you, worship Yahweh or not. In Genesis chapter 31, we see Rachel stealing Laban's household gods, but they appear to be much smaller. She's able to gather up a bunch of his household gods and wrap them up and take them out of the house. This one apparently is large enough to fool people into thinking that this is David that's laying there in bed. Now, some have suggested that Michal may have gone out of the house, out on the street to get one of these and to bring it in the house. Most theologians agree that David would not have had an idol in his house. At least he would not have been aware of something like that. And perhaps Michal did, but David would not. After all, David was this man after God's own heart, as Samuel had said. Well, either way, and however we're to understand this, I think there's a great follow-up question that we need to ask, and that is this. When was the last time that you did inventory over what's in your house? When's the last time you really kind of thought through, what are the things in this house that may not please God, that may be an offense to Him? Let me ask you this. Do you know what people are watching on the internet in your house? Do you know? Do you know what people are watching on Netflix in your house? Parents, do you know what music is being listened to in your house? When's the last time you checked into it? To check into the spirit of that music, to check into the lyrics of that music. This is important stuff. Parents, do you know what games are being played in your house? Are they respectful? Are they ones that lead people toward what is good and wholesome? Or are they going in a different direction? Are there occultic objects in your home? Objects that would give honor to pagan gods. Some people say, really? Well, possibly, right? Even different games that are occultic in nature, Ouija boards and things like that. Are there these kinds of things in your home? You know, as children of God, we need to be proactive in making our homes places that honor the living God, the God of the Bible. And He has told us to be careful about all of these things and more. And so we need to take ownership of our homes and make sure that they're places that honor God. Well, David flees to Ramah. He goes there to see Samuel in verse 18. And then the two of them flee to Naioth, this other town in Israel. And Saul's men catch word of it, and they pursue David there to Naioth. When they arrive, they see Samuel and a bunch of men prophesying. Then Saul's own men, all of a sudden out of nowhere, they start prophesying. And again, it's this sort of out of control sort of prophesying. And then Saul hears about it, and so he sends another troop to go there. And when that troop arrives, they start prophesying as well, and they're out of control, and they can't fulfill what Saul is asking them to do, which is to kill David. Finally, Saul says, well, I'm just going to go myself. And so Saul goes, and when he gets there, the Spirit of God comes upon him as well, and he ends up prophesying. Not only does he prophesy, it says, but then he strips off his clothes and he lays down for the rest of that day and the whole night after. It's like the Spirit of God came upon him and disabled him from being able to do what he wanted to do. Well, God is demonstrating His power. Not only are Saul's own children, I'm talking about Jonathan, I'm talking about Michal, are they thwarting his efforts, but God is literally disabling him as he goes to follow through with his evil schemes of killing David. And he just can't make any progress. And God is showing him, Saul, I can do anything to prevent you from touching my anointed. Well, here's the lesson. The lesson here is that when God wants to block your path, guys, He is unlimited in His ability to do it. I don't know if you've ever been in a position where you felt like God was constantly blocking your path, constantly blocking you. Well, I would encourage you, if you feel this way, that you should begin by checking your own heart and just seeing what's actually going on in your heart. What are your true motives? Because God knows your heart better than you do. And roadblocks are not always a sign of sin in our lives. There can be many other reasons, but it is quite common that sin in our lives will put up these roadblocks from God. And so I would encourage you to look into that. And just test your own heart and say, God, is there something here that I'm doing that is causing you to resist me? Well, we get to chapter 20, and it's the story of David and Jonathan. In chapter 20, guys, I have to tell you, it's one of my favorite chapters in the whole Bible. I think it's such an amazing story. It's one of the most powerful friendship stories you will ever read anywhere. David flees from Naioth with Samuel, and he goes to see Jonathan. And he doesn't understand Saul's anger toward him. He's like, I've done nothing to your father. Why is your father so adamant to kill me? And Jonathan reassures him that as long as he is around, he is not going to let anything happen to David. And he tells him, I'm willing to do anything, David, to protect you. I will go to any lengths to be there for you, and I will do whatever you ask. And so David devises a plan, and basically here's how the plan goes. He says, well, listen, Jonathan, tomorrow is the New Moon Festival. Everyone is going to be there at the palace. Your dad is going to expect to see me there at the palace. And here's the deal. I want you, because I'm afraid to go there. Here's what I would like for you to do. I would like, if he asks, for you to tell him that I had to go to Bethlehem for an annual sacrifice that's being made for my clan. And just tell him that story. And when you give him that reason for my absence, we're going to do a little test here. If Saul is calm, that means that he means me no harm, and then I can stay here and come back to the palace. But if he gets angry, that's going to be a sign that he is still adamant on killing me, and I will know that I have to flee. And in order to tell me the results of this test, because obviously I'm not going to be there, David says, we're going to orchestrate a little target shoot. And the way it's going to work is you and your servant, you're going to go out there by this rock, and I'm going to be hiding in the woods. And as you're there, you're going to shoot arrows. And if you shoot the arrows before the rock on this side of it, and you call to the servant, go get the arrows on this side of the rock, I will know that everything is good, and it's safe for me to come back. But if you shoot the arrows beyond the rock, and the servant has to go beyond the rock to get them, then I will know that your father's anger is still against me and that it's no longer safe for me to be here with you and your family. Well, guys, I want to actually go and read the last bit of this story because, like I said, I think it's such a powerful part of this story in 1 Samuel. And so I'm reading from verse 24 of chapter 20. It says, "So David hid in the field, and when the new moon festival came, the king sat down to eat. He sat in his customary place by the wall opposite Jonathan, and Abner sat next to Saul. But David's place was empty. Saul said nothing that day, for he thought, something must have happened to David to make him ceremonially unclean. Surely he is unclean. But the next day, the second day of the month, David's place was empty again. Then Saul said to his son Jonathan, 'Why hasn't the son of Jesse come to the meal, either yesterday or today?' Jonathan answered, 'David earnestly asked me for permission to go to Bethlehem. He said, "Let me go because our family is observing a sacrifice in the town, and my brother has ordered me to be there. If I have found favor in your eyes, let me go away and see my brothers." That is why he has not come to the king's table.' Saul's anger flared up at Jonathan, and he said to him, 'You son of a perverse and rebellious woman, don't I know that you have sided with the son of Jesse to your own shame and to the shame of the mother who bore you? As long as the son of Jesse lives on this earth, neither you nor your kingdom will be established. Now send and bring him to me, for he must die.' 'Why should he be put to death? What has he done?' Jonathan asked his father. But Saul hurled his spear at him to kill him, his own son. Then Jonathan knew that his father intended to kill David. Jonathan got up from the table in fierce anger on that second day of the month, and he did not eat because he was grieved at his father's shameful treatment of David. In the morning, Jonathan went out to the field for his meeting with David. He had a small boy with him, and he said to the boy, 'Run and find the arrows that I shoot.' As the boy ran, he shot an arrow beyond him. When the boy came to the place where Jonathan's arrow had fallen, Jonathan called out to him, 'Isn't the arrow beyond you?' Then he shouted, 'Hurry, go quickly, don't stop.' The boy picked up the arrow and returned to his master. The boy knew nothing of all of this. Jonathan and David knew. Then Jonathan gave his weapons to the boy and said, 'Go, carry them back to town.' After the boy had gone, David got up from the south side of the stone and bowed down before Jonathan 3 times with his face to the ground. They kissed each other and wept together, but David wept the most. Jonathan said to David, 'Go in peace, for we have sworn friendship to each other in the name of the Lord, saying, "The Lord is witness between you and me, and between your descendants and my descendants forever." And then David left, and Jonathan went back to the town. Guys, I remember the first time I ever spoke a message on this chapter. I was in my hometown, and it was close to the time that I was going to be leaving for good from my town. I knew that I would never be returning to live there. And the emotion of this story hit me really, really hard. It still hits me hard every time that I read it. For those that know me, in my elementary school years, I moved a few times, and I found it very, very difficult every time that I had to do that. Each time that I moved, I had to leave good friends behind. The first time, I was only like 5 years old, and I left a friend named Peter, who was my best buddy. Then we went to this Bible school where God had called my dad to go, and we went there, and we lived there for 3 years, and I made some more good friends. But after 3 years, we moved away from there, and when we moved away, I left a friend named Robbie, another friend named Greg, that were really good friends. Then, after we moved back to Nova Scotia, where we were, God tapped my parents on the shoulder and said, "Hey, I want you to go and help start a church with this other pastor and his wife." And so we moved again at that time, and I left another friend behind. His name was Glenn. He was my best friend, and we were just close like this. Guys, each time that we moved, it was for ministry. So even as a child, when we were going through these moves, my parents would try to contextualize it for me and help me understand, God's leading us to these different places. And I could relate to this story of Jonathan, where God was so obviously in the midst of this and helping, to make this decision on a godly basis. And every time I read this story, I could feel the emotion so clearly. I could feel Jonathan getting angry as he asked his servant to go and pick up the arrows, not because he's actually angry at the servant, but because if he doesn't get angry, he's going to cry right there in front of this boy. And I can feel all of it when I read this story. You know, I think that God was preparing me when I was a kid, because he knew that I was going to have many other departures like that. When my older brother graduated from high school, he went off to Bible college, and we dropped him off, and we drove home, which was a long trip, 6 or 7 hours to get home. And it was just me in the back seat, my parents in the front, and I cried the whole way home. My parents didn't even know, but I was crying the whole way home. When I left Bible college, after I ended up going to Bible college, I remember my friend Paul and he was a good friend that I had made at Bible college. And once again, we were just like really tight. When we graduated, I remember on graduation day, the two of us holding our diplomas and looking at each other, and we said, we're never going to see each other again, are we? And we both said, nope. And we haven't. I've never seen him again. Connected with him a couple times on Facebook, but we've never seen each other again. When Sarah and I left Washington, D.C. after I graduated from seminary, we cried as our friends Matt and Esther and Nicole and Larry saw us off in our Volkswagen. That was us. My wife will not appreciate me showing that picture probably, because she was a bit of a mess. But it was tough, you know, leaving friends behind. Guys, leaving friends is difficult. It's always difficult. But I've come to embrace the bittersweet aspect of it. You know, knowing that your parting is for a good and godly purpose makes it something that you can celebrate, and that you're knowing you're going to see these friends again someday. You know, the lesson here, guys, is this. David's life path was defined by his anointing. Don't miss this. He was God's anointed, and so he knew that he had to, you know, do certain things and go certain places at certain times because he was to fulfill God's very important role in his life. And guys, our life paths should also be defined in the same way. And this is the lesson here. Our life paths should be defined in the same way. It's not our desires, it's not the things that we're doing. It's what's God's purpose for our life. That's what should be directing us. Because the Bible says that we too are his anointed. And we ought to make decisions based on bigger purposes. You know, sometimes that involves a bigger move, that God may be, you know, moving us to something in our lives. Sometimes it's something that's not as big. Maybe it's a smaller thing. Maybe it's just like shaking up your Renew group once in a while and mixing with a new group of people and saying bye to some people and, you know, making friends with other people. But whatever it is you're doing, of knowing that you're following God's purpose in that it's his direction that you're following. You know, if you honor God by following even when it's difficult, my experience is that he will bless you for it. When I got to Washington Bible College, it was quite interesting because I was this little kid in this big city. I'd never been in a big place like that. And I got at the college, and I have to say I was a little bit intimidated. Do you know two of the people that I met when I was there? Robbie and Greg, my two buddies that I had when I was like 6 or 7 years old, back at the trailer park at the Bible school. And Greg actually ended up being my roommate one of the years that I was there. It was pretty cool. You know, I just talked on the phone with my friend Glenn this past week. And because I know him so well, I know very few birthdays. I know that October 25th is his birthday. So Glenn, happy birthday, buddy. This is a big one for you. But it's great to be able to connect with friends. You know, God's blessed me with other high school friends that I stay close to. And I just want to encourage all of you that are watching this morning, when it comes to this friendship stuff, because it's really important, you need to trust God with your friends. You know, God is the one that created friendship, and he gets it. Every time your heart is torn, he understands. And in each of those departures, you know what I found? I found that it actually drew me closer to God, because I realized I need to stay closest to the one who's never going to leave me, that I'm always going to have with me. And God became my best friend, the one that would always be there for me. And I came to understand that friendship was something that God was wanting with me in that same way, that he wanted to have that intimate relationship with me, our hearts being entwined together. A little spoiler before I end. We're going to see in chapter 23, God is going to give David and Jonathan another reunion. And sometimes we're blessed with these. So stay tuned for that. Be back next week as we continue in our study.
You know, God has built this idea of community, friendship into the fabric of who we are as humans. That's why it hurts so much when friendship gets broken down or gets taken away from us or gets broken up somehow. Friendship community has tons of ups and tons of downs in this life. But what's cool is God has built that very fabric into who we are because God is a God of community. He calls us into community with himself. And when we do that, we actually experience the truest purpose we could ever have. We could ever actually fulfill what he's called us to do. The song we're going to sing is Tethered, and this idea that just putting yourself out there and admitting that, hey, I need you, God, and in all reality, I'm tethered to your heart. And when we actually come to that place and actually admit it, man, we can experience such a community with the one true living God. And he makes these things that Bartley was talking about, like when we follow God, when we obey him, even when it causes us to have losses or to feel pain in relationships, sometimes we know that we're following the good God, the creator of the universe that loves us so much he sent his son to die for us and to rise again, and gives us the opportunity to actually be drawn back into community with him and to be tethered to his heart. So will you sing with us?
I don't want to miss the beauty of heaven all around me, your power and your mercy, the greatness of your love. I don't want to lose the one tether us to your heart, God. We want to be with you, and we want to be going where it is that you want us to go, God. We want to be following your call in our lives. And I just pray that you will make your presence known to us, make your call known to us, God, so that we can have a greater sense of knowing what it is that you want for each and every one of us. And thank you for the friendships that we have in the community that we have even here within Renew Church, God. And I pray that we will be able to support each other well during this difficult and crazy, uncertain time that our world is going through right now. And I pray that you will allow our friendships with each other to grow stronger, and our relationship with you to grow stronger, God, that we will have a deep desire and a deep sense of wanting to be closer to you, God, and just wanting to go deeper with you in our relationship with you, Lord. In your name.
I was actually having lunch with a friend this week who was from one of the previous Renew groups that I was a part of in Mayfield West. His family had to move out to Cambridge, and so joined the Cambridge campus, and then we moved out to Milton. And we were just reminiscing about how, sometimes when you're in the moment of growing in relationship and in friendship, you don't really necessarily understand the depth that's being created there. You don't really understand the trust that's being built there in the moment. You may not always feel it, but then afterwards, outside of that friendship, when we're not seeing each other on a regular basis, and the depth of friendship that was created there was really deep in just a few years in a Renew group with these guys and with these families. And we were just talking about how much of a blessing it is that our families feel that love for one another, that our families have that trust for one another. One of the other members of the group went through a recent tragedy, and the first people that they called to talk about the stuff with was people in the group. And we shared it together, the grief together, and mourned together, and encouraged one another. And we're not a group anymore, and we haven't been a group for a year. And so it goes to show the value of friendship in that way, and the type of friendship that can be created by being intentionally on mission together, at least in the form of our groups, which is what we really emphasize today. And so if you're joining us and just connecting with us for the first time, or you've been connecting with us for any amount of time, but you don't really feel connected at Renew Church, or you don't really feel like this is where some of your key or primary friendships and relationships are, we want to get you connected to the church. We want to get you connected into a group. We want you to start to be able to build those kinds of relationships and friendships, Christ-centered relationships and friendships that can be lasting and can actually have the impact that the ones that I've experienced have had, and similar to what Bartley described this morning in the sermon. And so what we ask you to do is to go on over to renewchurch.ca/connect and fill out our Connect card there, and let us know if there's any needs that we can meet. But particularly, if you're not in a group or connected to a group kind of closely or even loosely, we want you to let us know. We would love to get you connected into a group that's in proximity to your local campus, or at least somewhere close to you. And a lot of our groups are online right now, and so it'll be very, very easy to just connect in and join in. I also want to remind you that we have a baptism class coming up next week. And if you have been following Jesus for any amount of time and you've never gotten baptized, Jesus wants you to get baptized. It's as simple as that. And at Renew Church, we run a class called the baptism class, which gives you a chance to understand baptism, understand the theological background to it, understand how we do it at Renew Church and why. And it's a non-committal class. All you do is you show up and you do the material and you learn about it. You don't have to be committed to getting baptized in order to do the study, but our hope is that through the study, you fully understand why Jesus wants you to get baptized, and then you walk alongside of us in that journey, and we can lead you in that, and that you get baptized here at Renew Church with us as a family and as a church. And so please, if you've never been baptized but you follow Jesus, consider taking that class, and you can, again, let us know by going to the online Connect card, renewchurch.ca/connect, and letting us know, and we'll reach out to you and get you connected to that class that's coming up next week, led by Pastor Mitch. We're going to worship just a little bit more here, and then we will conclude our Sunday morning live stream service. I want to thank you for tuning in with us and joining us this morning, and I want to encourage you to take this last opportunity this morning to worship the Lord our God as a church and as a community. right. Well, thank you guys for worshiping with us. Thank you for joining us this morning.
Yeah.
Thank you, Lina, for being here.
Thanks.
I feel like our friendship grew just you being here.
Yeah,
and
absolutely.
I feel like now if you left here, I would cry. I would actually feel the emotion and cry. Because that's what friends do.
That is what friends do. Places. Yeah, yeah. Actually, I had a little bit of a tearful moment this morning while listening to Elizabeth sing Oceans. Yeah, I love that worship song.
It still gets you, huh?
It still gets me every time.
It does.
Yeah, so I was thankful to be with friends where if I cried, it would be okay.
Yeah, that's right. Again, another great message from Pastor Bartley. We've been really thankful for Pastor Bartley's teaching through the book of 1 Samuel, and soon we're going to be jumping into 2 Samuel because that's the series. We're doing 1 and 2 Samuel following the life of kind of two kings, Saul and David, and so we're kind of seeing the transition happen now, which is really neat. So join us for future weeks as we continue this teaching in The Crown, and you'll get to be connected to more of the story and learn more about what not just happened, but things about God. And when we learn things about God, we can actually learn about who we are and then how He would want us to live and respond. And so that's what we've been doing this series. It's been great. So I want to encourage you to continue up with our Renew Group series in Acts. We're continuing that this week. Again, if you're not connected into Renew Group, I'd like you to reach out to us and let us know and get connected. It's the easiest time ever to connect into a Renew Group. You just have to tell us, and we'll send you a Zoom link. That's as simple as it is. Yeah. You can keep your thing on mute the whole time and not feel like you have to say anything. You can just watch the way people interact. Now, obviously, Zoom is not the best way to show what group life is like, because normally our groups hang out and eat dinner and laugh, and there's cross-conversation happening.
Yeah.
But right now, at least you'll get a chance to hear some of the people's stories and connect with them through Zoom. And so please connect with us if you're not in a Renew Group. We'd love to get you connected to that.
Yeah, and it's great. I feel like if you're in all stages of life, if you're a young adult, there's Maverick Society.
Yes.
If you're a youth, there's Maverick Youth. Renew Groups. I feel like Renew just offers so many different avenues to be in community and to build friendships. And that's great.
Totally. Yeah, you are actually, Lina, we didn't mention this, but Lina also serves in our Maverick Youth program.
Yeah.
And so that's on Tuesday nights.
Yes.
And right now it is Zoom calls. There's a couple groups that are actually meeting in person and joining the Zoom call together outside around a fire with the limitations and whatever. So so I know your group is doing that.
Yeah.
And you guys are in the middle of a series. You're starting something new this week.
We are starting something new this week.
Wait, isn't this week Nathan Pugh's first Teaching Tuesday?
It is Nathan Pugh's first Teaching
Our
Tuesday.
intern Nathan Pugh, all the way from NBBI, the Bible school that actually Bartley graduated from 100 years ago. Sorry, just kidding. 25, 27 years. I don't know how long ago it was. But he's here with us. He is the younger brother of Tim Pugh, who was here with us last year with GCBI.
Yeah.
And he's going to be teaching this Tuesday for the first time. So that's really cool and exciting.
Yeah, and we're doing a costume party on Tuesday as well. So I've got all of the costumes.
You've got all the costumes. And you guys, actually, I think I heard that the girl leaders, the senior high girl leaders, are actually taking over the Zoom call live thing. So you don't want your students to miss this.
No.
The girl leaders are going to take it over, and anytime these leaders take it over, everything is just more fun and creative because you guys are good at that. And, the other guys are doing a good job of it. But you guys, I know some of the plans because my wife's a part of that. So it's going to be fun.
Yeah.
You don't want your student to miss this Tuesday.
No.
What you need to know to get connected to Maverick Youth is head on over to renewchurch.ca/Maverick-Youth. And then you can find anything you need to know there, how to connect your students to Maverick Youth and keep them connected in this season.
Yep.
So we look forward to that. What was on the children's program today? Because I didn't watch it because I was here. Do you remember anything that happened with kids? Is there anything to say, hey, don't forget, this was the thing this day?
Yeah, so it was our last day in October talking about integrity.
Ooh, okay.
Yeah, so that's being wrapped up. And we just talked about thinking about all the positive things that are happening in your life versus focusing on the negative. So thinking about things that are true and just and worthy of praise, to focus on those things.
That's good.
And then we're moving into a season of thankfulness.
Ooh.
So We want to hear about what the children are thankful for. It could be anything that they're thankful for. And that's what November will look like, going into a season of thankfulness. Of course, U.S. Thanksgiving will be happening at some point in November.
Yes.
So I think it's kind of centered around that as well.
It is.
Yeah.
It comes from, some of the curriculum comes from America, I know. So I was thinking, why isn't October the month of thankfulness?
Right.
Well, yeah, we all know why. So.
Yeah. But I mean, there's tons of reasons to be thankful for every single day, right?
There is.
So.
And don't forget to get your kids connected to the Maverick or the Renew Kids Zoom costume party.
Yeah.
It's going to be hype. It's going to be a fun time for the kids to dress up and see each other on Zoom. And like we said earlier at the pre-service, the Bueller Boys are going to be there. So of course you want your kids to connect with the Bueller Boys. So that's exciting. All the information, again, everything's on our website. And so if you need anything, just go on over to our website and check it out there and connect with us there. We would love to be able to serve you and connect with you and get your family connected as much as possible in the season that we're in.
Yep.
I want to thank you guys for joining us this morning on the live stream service. And we want to invite you to continue to join us on Sunday mornings. We want you to invite you to think about other people who could also connect with us and join us on Sunday mornings. It's the easiest time to invite someone to church in the history of inviting people to church. Just send them a link. So be thinking about that this week. Think about how you can get people connected around you, not just to the local church, but ultimately to Jesus, our Savior. So
I told my mom I was going to be online this morning.
So
hopefully she watched.
Hi, Mom.
Hi.
Look, we're here on TV for billions and billions of people worldwide. So cool. You're famous now.
I know.
Isn't that cool?
Yeah.
Well, good.
So hopefully she watched.
Yeah. Well, thanks again for joining us, Lina. This was a lot of fun. Thank you for joining us, and we'll do this again soon.